Everybody, welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's Friday, and am I happy to say it? Well, you bet I am. Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm Mao Pelgun Yusuf.
Amaya Makine, good morning and welcome. Today is October 25, 2024. Welcome to the show.
Well, I reckon that this is one of the places that you like to visit. One of these lovely, relaxing places on a Friday, such as this one. So, guys, treat yourself. Picturesque view of this. What can you say? Sometimes you just want to just have a look and take it all in. It has a soothing effect all by itself, even like this. So, let alone when you see the images, perhaps in close physical proximity, or maybe close proximity if it's not that physical. But you know, when the cameras are close, you get almost the same kind of feeling. I'm not sure if this is part of the places that you visited, though. Not this one.
Oh, certainly it was this one.
Oh,
it's called the Ushafa
there
Dam.
you go.
Yes, it's called the Ushafa Dam. And, you know, we really have to salute the dedication of the gentleman who gets these views for us, who gets these shots for us, because it's very difficult to go there and get this place as pristine as it looks. And you don't know it until you finally visit there yourself, because it's actually a place that the locals like to hang out, the youths of the community.
Oh, nice.
They like to hang out there. I mean, you see them visit the place. They perform stunts for you. So if you want them to show you, to display for you, all you have to do is call a few of them, and they will jump in the water. They will show you what's possible. You know, where you can walk, where you can paddle, where it's safe for even young people to just be able to play. So the water is not as deep as it looks in certain places, but some other places it's dangerous. But they have studied everywhere, and they know just where it's safe. So I wonder what time he must have gone for him to get it in a state where people, yeah? Exactly where there's no one in the water, where it is just pristine and it's just as calming. It is beautiful to just look at like this. Never mind that it's an abandoned dam. It's unclear what the purpose was for. A dugout lake and an abandoned dam obviously was supposed to supply electricity somewhere, maybe perhaps be useful for irrigation, etc., etc. But sadly, that project now has been left to rot. Nevertheless, we still have this, something that now sticks out as a wonder, a man-made wonder, if you please, and something that at least the youth of the community are making the most of by turning it to a tourist attraction. So, yes, Ushafa Dam for you, just somewhere in Niger State. Yeah, in Niger State, Suleja, Niger State, not too far from the Federal Capital Territory. A lovely 15-minute drive might get you there in no time. So, and it's certainly, I can tell you something, it certainly will be worth your while. So if you do have time in the Federal Capital Territory, you can pay a visit there. Otherwise, enjoy the visuals that we're bringing your way this morning. It is really, really calming to watch. Ayo.
I like the fact that the part where you talked about the tourist potential of it. And I don't know, guys, I think maybe this Niger State government should start paying royalties every time because it seems like we've wanted to feature sites from Niger State a little more than others, which is, of course, not an indictment, but every state that has such views should just, we should celebrate what we have. That's just, I mean, when you look at that first shot, the opening shot that Chamberlain talked about, when you look at it up close, I mean, it is something else, but I still go back to the celebration of such views, how the idea was even conceived to create such a dam with the kind of beauty that is in your face. It's another thing altogether. It's just, just wonderful. And yes, one of the reasons, one of the functions of a dam, correctly put, is power generation. But there are other needs, other things other purposes to which a dam should be put. And I think, this investment should not be left to rot. as we have identified, it should be put to better use than just for us to, if putting it to other use is going to compromise this beauty, please just leave it as it is. We love it just this way. Let's just build a tourist infrastructure around it and just let the world know that we have beauty and joy in this nation. Chamberlain.
Yeah, there are several parts of this country that you need to, as much as possible, take out time. We know, challenging as it may be, but it is not all doom and gloom, literally. All that said, let's take you through some of the dailies and see what they reflect today. Ayo.
The President's directive on the cost of governance is one of the issues you will find on the front pages of some dailies this morning. Let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Cost of governance, Tinubu limits ministers' convoys to 3 vehicles. Lead by example, CSOs tell President and governors. World Bank offers 4-point plan to reduce government spending. The details of that story you'll find on the inside pages. Nigerian News Direct has cost of governance. Tinubu slashes ministers, head of agencies convoy to 3 vehicles. Gives nod to attachment of 5 security personnel to each minister. Direct NSA to coordinate immediate reduction of ministers, vehicles, and security personnel. This Nigerian newspaper has stop moving in long convoys. Tinubu orders ministers, reduces official vehicles and convoys to 3 for ministers. MDAs downsizes security. Presidency says directive part of cost-saving measures. Mixed reactions over policy. The details on page 6 of the paper this morning. If you look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, same story, governance costs. Tinubu orders cuts in ministers' convoys, aids. Orders military paramilitary agencies to reduce vehicles, personnel deployment. How Nigerians' feedback shaped Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle, as from presidency. Ministers assessed based on performance. Matawale retained because allegations linking him to banditry untrue. Pai Baja, Oluwamiuju, Edno, others were retained. That's from a source. Retaining Keyamo reflects Tinubu's commitment to aviation growth. That's from AON. As Tinubu seeks Senate confirmation of ministerial nominees. Find the details though. Find the details of that story on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. So what the stories, look at the front page of Business Day. 4 ways FX-starved Nigeria can boost oil output. Find the details of that story continue on the inside pages. Investigation begins as oil workers die in helicopter crash. That's a fortunate story. Stories on page 3. 3 bodies recovered, 5 still missing. Crashed chopper was heading to our facility. That's from NNPCL. How we activated rescue coordination activities, NAMA. Pilot revealed as NAPE Vice President. The front page of New Telegraph has no deadline on circulation of old Naira notes, says CBN. Stories on page 3. Daily Independent. Port Harcourt crash, how we lost contact with helicopter we engaged by NNPC Limited. 8 persons on board killed as NSIB investigates incident. Details continue on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Look at the front page of Blueprint newspaper. Ahead Senate screening, Nigerians set agenda for new ministers, want cost of living reduced. APC women leader tasks Iman on gender-based violence. Jide identifies gender gaps, says youth. PLWDs deserve mention. Mixed reactions greet Yilwada choice for humanitarian affairs. The Guardian newspaper calls for military intervention. Misery, harsh policies driving Nigerians to desperate choices. Find the details of that story on pages 4 and 5 of the paper this morning. Daily Times newspaper, senators split over funding for zonal development commissions as lawmakers reject immunity for commissioners' chief executives. The story is on page 4 of Daily Times newspaper this morning. And these are some of the papers we have for you today.
Well, yes, indeed. Those are some of the headlines this morning, but part of which the unfortunate incident involving the helicopter crash in Port Harcourt. So this morning, we're just going to go ahead and get some updates on the same matter. We're joined by Captain Alex Bade Jr., who is the Director General, Nigeria Safety Investigation Bureau, who joins us virtually. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Morning, Jimmy.
Yeah, so really a tough one for a lot of people to take, especially seeing that they were really close to where they were headed. So what is the latest development today?
Our investigators are en route to the FPSO from Port Harcourt at this time. We know a couple more bodies have been recovered. The helicopter is down about 40 meters of water. So recovery of the wreckage will be a little difficult over the next coming weeks or coming days. We'll try to recover the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder. Obviously, right now, the priority is to recover the rest of the bodies there from the helicopter.
How many more bodies have been recovered?
2 more at this time.
So if we get it right, as I guess today we're told 3 people were killed in that crash. Apparently there are a lot more because we understand there were 8 people on board the helicopter. Is it possible that none of them survived?
Yeah, unfortunately at this time, that's the working theory. They've recovered 2 more bodies, making a total of 5. There are 3 more down there that hopefully will be recovered today.
Do you think that there is any way that they might have been able to make it out alive, the remaining 3 people?
I mean, the human being is resilient. As long as they have their life support devices, there's a chance that we might find survivors there.
So tell us more about this helicopter. What other information do you have? Because we understand that they were just about 1 kilometer away from their destination. What are some of the things that you think might I know it might be difficult for you to speculate, and it's not something that, but what are the preliminary reports that you're getting in terms of what might have happened 1 kilometer away from destination?
That will be speculation. I can't really say, but we do know there was some weather. There was some light to moderate rain on the arrival, and it was overcast. So we'll look into that. That might have a chance or a role here to play the survivability of the ditching. But other than that, I can't really say until we recover the flight data recorder, voice recorder, and speak to more witnesses there.
What are some of the safety precautions? Because we also know that the rainy season, you just mentioned clouds, overcast. The rainy season is just about wrapping up in some parts of Nigeria. In some other parts, the rains are getting intense. What sort of safety precautions are helicopter pilots required to take, before they set out on a flight like that?
Well, any pilot is required to look at your arrival weather at your destination or your route weather wherever you're going. So that's one. And of course, they'll check their survivability equipment, survivable gear, considering this an offshore helicopter. So flotation devices and whatnot should be checked to be serviceable.
Well, just going through the information available everywhere, it appears as though there may be some gaps, but maybe, you could speak to that professionally. Is it that, because we understand that there's a forward operating base, which is really close there, but it turns out that they were not approached for any rescue effort whatsoever. Are you aware of that?
I'm unaware of that, but I wouldn't say they weren't approached for any rescue efforts because there were 6 vessels in the sea at that time assisting in the recovery operation. The FPSO was there, and there's another rig just a few kilometers away. So there was robust support in the area. And I think the people in the FPSO saw the helicopter visually going down in the water as well. But there was enough support there, about 6 vessels in the water at that time.
So could you give us a picture? What is the procedure for the safety measures that is supposed to naturally kick in when these kind of things happen? Is it that those vessels are usually there all the time when they fly? In the event that they are not, what procedure, how should it turn out normally?
Well, I will be able to speak as to marine procedures at this time, but I do know whenever there's an accident at sea, the information is broadcast to to vessels in the area to support. That happens all the time. I mean, we've seen crashes and incidents in the water where other vessels go to help, just like the crash in the Hudson in the United States years ago. You had the vessels in the sea go rescue the survivors.
I'm just a little curious, going with your own experience as a pilot yourself. I do know that this certainly is not something. I heard you speak to Chamberlain yesterday, and you say this is not something that happens often. Thankfully, that the airspace, transport within the airspace is heavily regulated. However, when you do recover the flight record, and we're hoping that would happen very soon, what will you be looking to, get from it? What will the safety agency be looking to extract from it?
Once we get that, we download the information in our lab and we come up with a working theory of what happened. Fortunately, we have the equipment to simulate the whole flight, the entire flight, should we recover the recorders in good working condition. So once we're able to do that, we'll try to find out what happened to the helicopter at this time. And once we know that, we'll disseminate that to the regulators and to the general public, really, for sensitization and for corrections to be made, or corrective action.
How likely is that? Do we know if the helicopter exploded or what?
We're unaware of what happened at this time. No, I have no information as to what happened to the helicopter. That will be speculated. We just know that they declared an emergency and did say they were ditching in the water. That's as far as I know at this time.
Captain, I can't imagine how you must feel when you receive this kind of news from time to time. There's something, and I'm pretty sure that you're as distraught as many Nigerians looking at this now. But, there is some information that your organization has put out, one of which is that there is an endurance of 2 hours and 15 minutes of fuel at the time of the incident. What is the implication of that?
That really has nothing to bear in this. 2 hours and 15 minutes of fuel is a lot of fuel, considering they were only 8 kilometers from the intended destination. So we're not, at this time, all options are on the table, but I can't speak to that at this time, but we just know that they had enough fuel.
So, in other words, that possibility of running out of fuel is taking out. But perhaps also the question that Mark were asked around whether or not there was an explosion is part of the reason that I'm asking that question. Could that have happened?
I have no idea. Anything could have happened, and we'll know more once we recover the flight data recorder in the coming weeks. But I can't speak to any information on explosion.
All right. Well, there was also this information that you may want to please speak to this again, because you may have spoken to it before, that the helicopter was flying under visual flight rules, but did not emit any or transmit any emergency locator transmitter signal, making such efforts more complex. What is the implication? What could be the implication of that, Captain?
Well, fortunately, we know exactly where there are divers there at the scene recovering bodies. So, fortunately, the ELT this time, was not totally necessary. But typically, when a crash happens, the ELT should go out and broadcast a signal on 121.5 megahertz. Which anybody tuning into that frequency on VHF should be able to pick up. So, unfortunately, that didn't go off at this time. We'll know more once the helicopter, if it's being able to be recovered from that depth, because 40 meters is pretty. But we will be recovering the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wait, just as you have said. But do you have any idea of what timeline we should be looking out for this recovery?
I can't speak to that at this time. There's a lot of logistics involved in that. We're working on, we aim to publish our preliminary in the next 30 days. So hopefully we'll try to wrap that up before the prelim is released.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Captain, and commiserations to the industry and to the families that are directly involved and to the organization that the deceased served. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Captain Alex Badi Jr., DG, Nigeria Safety Investigation Bureau, NSIB. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
All right, let's switch gear now. Chamberlain. Oh, well, before we go to Abuja, let's take a short break, and when we return, more issues to be raised from the statements the president has made about cutting the cost of governance, a long conversation over the years. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We've got Mr. Ladan Salihu here with us. He's got many caps, part of which is former Commissioner for Information and Budget, spokesperson, League of Northern Democrats, and several. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Nice being with you, Ope and Chamberlain.
Well, it turned out the last time we had you here, you had just thankfully come off a fire incident.
Yes.
Unfortunately, at least, you scaled through that one. Today, again, we have this unfortunate scenario that just happened in Port Harcourt, and I know it's all over the place, but what's going through your mind about all of that, though? They say, yes, accidents do happen, but how does this one strike you?
Chamberlain, we are in a moment of national grief and, of this very monumental, tragic event. It's a moment of, if you would like, melancholy. It's not something any nation should go through. Coming after the horrific, tragic, tanker incident in Jigawa, in Majia, and now this very, horrific incident, in Port Harcourt, it tells you that, first of all, commiserations to the families of the deceased, and as a nation we mourn, and these gentlemen on board the helicopter, I think, died in active service, and we pray that the families will have the fortitude to bear the loss. Having said that, I am worried. It would appear as if, as a nation, going forward, we should have, a timeline, and we should be seen to, work within the best global practices of accident management, incident management, and, a proactive and engaging approach even after such tragic events. For instance, in my opinion, I'm not an expert, but the public should always be on the same page with the authorities, the safety, management experts, and the people in government, various, players in the safety and transportation management chain, in the aviation management chain, so that when such an incident happens, look, we've had several crashes in Nigeria, very tragic. And, the information out there appears to be insufficient in a way that will give, a kind of, arrest future developments. Are the checks on our aircraft complete? Are the safety measures being adhered to 100%? 99.9% is not enough, because you're talking about lives. But all that, considered, I want to believe that, all the authorities concerned will collaborate, will engage each other, and rescue the three remaining, identify the three remaining people on board that are missing. Hopefully they will be alive. And then going forward, we should be very, very diligent in managing such situations.
Speaking about that, being diligent, it comes across as though both on land, sea, and air, when accidents happen, yes, you have agencies that are supposed to look into it. Now, assuming they do and come up with their reports, we don't, well, I'm not sure, maybe tell me if I'm missing something. I'm not sure I actually see us being diligent and being thoughtful in the sense that we'll learn from those incidents and then change a thing or two. On the roads, for instance, if accidents happen on the road, you see people run into culverts. But you still see, even tomorrow, they put this very solid brick stone on the roads there, which you can crash into it. And when you crash into that kind of thing, of course, you know the kind of consequences. The same thing we see with the airports. You don't, so am I missing something here? Because it doesn't look as if we're critically thinking about safety across board.
I think we are kind of boxed into old traditions of doing things. My attitude to it is that, look, first of all, try as much as possible to take care of the human element on your own part, to ensure that, you put all the instruments, all the policy, approaches, in place, and then follow them scrupulously to ensure that they are being adhered to. Like you said, you're driving on Nigerian highways. If you're not being on a road, for instance, from Lagos, from Shagamu to or Benin, and you're driving, on top speed, and suddenly you just run after a turn into a roadblock with several, stones. Several obstacles, you run into them, and it's an accident. Anything can happen. I don't believe that the same approach is being applied into the aviation industry. But what I'm saying is that we need to, when such incidents happen, there must be reports, and the reports as much as possible. The authorities concerned should go a step further. Just don't lock them up in your shelves, or discuss them in the boardrooms, or share information with the operatives concerned. No, but avail some of the information, to the general public, so that we'll understand, appreciate, and celebrate.
Yeah, but
your
is anybody
excellence.
acting on any reports that they have seen?
It's a Nigerian factor. It's now left for gentlemen like you and Maupe and your reporters to be out there and on the heels of, professionals and those in charge of these organizations, to ensure that we hold them accountable. At least let us know. Let us understand. Let us appreciate the constraints, the limitations, the challenges, and what have you. And then let us have a conversation on the way forward. There may be experts out there who may not necessarily be within the system that will come up with options for you that you can put on the table and say, okay, I think Mr. X, Y, and Z are saying this and this and that. Shall we, gentlemen, consider? And then you have a more inclusive, professional working environment that will be to the greater benefit of Nigerians and for the safety of travelers.
Well, let me ask about whether we're learning lessons democratically speaking this time. Because I know
there you go again.
I know we price several things, but is the president, he's taking some decisions now, restricting convoys and security personnel attached to government officials, which is what some persons have clamored for a while. So does that come across to you as though, okay, they called it cost-cutting measure. Do you see it as same?
No, I think to me, it's not far enough. It has not gone deep enough. It is merely symbolic. They do not necessarily address the core issues that bedevil the economy, that we are in a crisis situation. Look, I just read a report that the Nigerian economy, is going through, the cost of living crisis that we're experiencing today. We've not seen it in the last 30 years. 30 years. And that, of course, we've said it here time and again, you have an inflation rate that is 34, racing to 35%, food inflation 40%. You have 80 million Nigerians out of 250 in multidimensional poverty. And you have a nation that is groaning. And so when you are doing what you call cost saving measures, after the deregulation or after the removal of oil subsidy, fuel subsidy, one would have expected that the removal of fuel subsidy, like the government told us at the beginning, they will rush in funds to address infrastructure deficit, to address poverty, to deal with the socially vulnerable classes. What we have seen is that we have sunken deeper into poverty. The infrastructure is not there. And when you say you have reduced the ministerial vehicles to 3, as a journalist, let me use this word loosely now, I will ask you, what about the remaining vehicles? Where are they going to be warehoused? Are they going to be kept in the garages?
That was reduced?
Of course, yes. The vehicles are there already. They've been bought. So what it means is that if I am a minister and I have 10 vehicles, I'll keep 7. The next trip I'll recycle.
New ministries. What if they assign them to those ministries?
If they assign them to other ministries, you would also believe that 70 to 80% of all the personnel that are entitled to vehicles have them. Okay. Now, what I'm saying, Chamberlain, is that if you have a cost-saving measure, and you also have, look, leadership is all about inspiration. It's not an inverted pyramid. You have to, by your ways, by your actions, and you have to show the lead from the best of examples. You cannot buy a presidential jet for 170 billion at the going rate and buy a yacht of 5 billion and do a cost-saving measure put together that is almost just about half of these expenses. And so it's just merely symbolic.
So there's this, the different schools of thought about how things should turn out and the kind of impact they should have. So there's one that say, we expect too much too soon. Another group says, look, the challenge, the rot is so much that if they put in any policy, it might take a while for those things to happen. And then another group thinks, well, not just patient, but we seem to be so angry not to even recognize the little things that are being done, whether or not to assess whether or not they're moving us in the right direction or not. Does any one of those fit the bill? Does any one of them make any sense to you whatsoever?
Well, what we do, what I've seen in governance is that we take one step forward and we take 2 steps backward. In a country where you have, several grieving heads, several heads that go to sleep without food on the table, they are likely to miss some of the things you do if they don't create an immediate impact, in their lives.
Help us understand this. In the context of the recent policies taken, is it the reshuffle, this particular one? Which one is forward, which one is backward?
I think to me, the reshuffle is merely symbolic. Look, when you look at the reshuffle, and what I'm going to say, I'll say with all sense of patriotism and humility, and I'll be frank with you and with Nigerians. When you want to address the current state of affairs in Nigeria, the deprivation that is out there, the poverty and the challenges of governance, and you want to reshuffle a cabinet, Nigerians would expect, and we did expect, a radical, shake-up of the cabinet to address the core issues that are bedeviling the polity and the economy and insecurity. Look, I would tell you that, yesterday we had a conversation with a group of friends, and I told them, I said, look, what do you expect Tinubu, for instance, to do more to Nigerians in terms of security, especially in the north. Tinubu can only do his own part. You have the two ministers of defense from the north. You have the national security advisor from the north. You have the chief of defense staff from the north. You have the chief of air staff from the north. If these 8 heads meet in one office and come up with a blueprint to tell the president, Mr. President, this is the way to go, I am certain that he will listen to them. So we are held in our cocoon of lamentation and complaints upon complaints upon complaints. We are not doing the needful. So the Minister of State for Defense is somebody that I know, I would say a friend. I also know, you know, the defense minister, the senior cabinet minister. But sorry, this is Nigeria. We're not getting results.
In other words, what? They're not doing their jobs as they ought to.
Probably they are overwhelmed. Probably they are not telling us their own setbacks and shortcomings and challenges, but we are not seeing the results. So one would have expected that, you know, in a cabinet reshuffle, not necessarily remove them, but take them into other areas of the cabinet where they will perform and bring core professionals that are knowledgeable in security and defense matters to take charge, because people are dying. And we cannot just keep quiet when people are dying and pretend that things are well. And the other time they killed Sububu in Sokoto, everybody was celebrating, and we thought there was going to be a momentum in dealing with insecurity situation. All of a sudden, they have regrouped, they have run away from Sokoto to Zamfara, Kebbi, and parts of Katsina, and they are now unleashing mayhem and murder. So we are not getting results. It is not about the two ministers. It is about a system that I have seen that is almost short-circuited, almost self-inflicted with inefficiency. So we have to address these issues and address them soon. That is why, you know, we keep complaining at the League of Northern Democrats, if I would say, on the issues that are clearly damaging the integrity, the economy, and the security of the North. We need people out there that are quality minds, people that have energy, they have verve and gusto.
Do you think that this is more about communication? You know, because they tell us oftentimes that security is everybody's business. But let me go back to the president. And yes, you can put that question on the one hand, whether you think that this is about communication. Because I mean, you just mentioned people with verve, people with gusto. And people, usually those kinds of people communicate more. But let me circle back to the initial question around the president's attempt to limit the convoy of ministers to 3 vehicles. It's not his first attempt to try and cut the cost of governance. Sometime in August last year, we also saw that he came up with measures to reduce the number of people traveling with either himself, his vice president, or even ministers, as the case might be. But it's not clear whether those measures are being followed. Whether, you know, only 20 people travel with the president when he leaves the country, whether only 5 people go with the VP when he leaves the country. There have been questions as to monitoring. If the ministers go with 5 vehicles instead of 3, who is to say, oh, minister, you are flouting the president's orders? And then now we've been told that the paramilitary agencies or the military agencies are also to determine by themselves how many vehicles they should have. And then if those ones argue that, well, it wasn't just my vehicle, I had other people who were going with me, for instance, as I mean, you have worked with the governor before, and you know, sometimes know how these things work. Commissioners might travel with the governor and might make the governor's convoy look long. So if those kinds of arguments come up, I mean, how are we to say that indeed the ministers are following the governor, following the president's orders, or are flouting it? I mean, is there any way to really measure this?
Well, first of all, you know, I want to believe that the president has done that with the best of intentions. All right? But then you are in a system that has over the years run, for want of a better expression, on the wheels of, is it corruption and so on. So there may be 3 official vehicles. The minister can tell you he has 3 more personal vehicles that he is fueling them with his own money. So we are not, in my opinion, about to see any drastic change in the chain of convoys that ministers have. And if you want to fact check it, how many ministers can you do at a given point? So to me, it's just literally, like I said, the president may have done it with the best of intentions, and I believe so, but then implementation is the problem. When you say, okay, for instance, the local government's autonomy issue, the Supreme Court has ruled, but operationalizing the judgment is now becoming a clear and present challenge on the grassroots. So it is the same attitude, it's the Nigerian factor. Do not, Maupe, expect to see the convoy of a minister with 3 vehicles. It won't happen. If somebody tells you it's going to happen, we're just fooling ourselves.
Why?
Because it is the way the Nigerians behave. Look,
you're saying the president's words carry no weight?
It carries weight, but he will have 7 vehicles. And he will say the 3 other vehicles are personal vehicles that I use to accompany, to pick extra, people that are seeing me off. And there's no way you can say he has flouted the president's order because FGN is written on 3 vehicles. That's what I'm saying. Now, if you want to be holistic on this issue, go back to the days of the military. I can remember when, at a time, the head of state said all ministers, all governors will ride a Peugeot 505 Series 2000. And it was followed. If you adopt that same attitude and Nigerians buy in, if we see a minister in Lugbe with 5 vehicles, you pick your phone and call the channel's hotline. I've seen ministers also with 5 vehicles. Please, when he comes to your studios next time, ask him. So it is, like I said, the president has done his own bit. Mm-hmm. Nigerians also have to step in and approach these public officers. They are public officers. They run on public funds. It is not pro bono, it's not gratis. Mm-hmm. They should be able to be held accountable by the ordinary citizen, by you, me, and everyone else.
What would you recommend? Because clearly you do not have a lot of faith. I mean, there's also the argument that, how will I put it now, that former governors, for instance, who are in the president's cabinet, a number of them have retirement benefits accruing to them from their respective states. I mean, there's also that to deal with. I don't know how that's supposed to work, but how do you, if you were to implement this, given your own experience in the governor's cabinet, how would you say this should work?
I think in principle, this federal, position should be adopted by the governors and translated, holistically. In my opinion, a governor's convoy shouldn't be more than maximum 7 vehicles, maximum. Unless in the...
7?
Yeah.
What does a governor's convoy consist of anyway?
The governor's convoy, by tradition, the norm, not necessarily a rule, you have, let me quickly count them for you. You have the outrider, which may be the police. You have the road safety vehicle. You have the protocol vehicle. You have the press vehicle. You have the special advisor press or media or the press secretary's vehicle. You have the security vehicle that is in front of the governor as a decoy. You have the governor's vehicle. you have the governor's standby vehicle, you have the governor's backup security, that's 9. You have an ambulance, that is 10. You have 2 other vehicles that can be on standby for anything. A minimum of 12, sometimes 15. Some governors stretch it up to 20. They have to be fueled, they have to be serviced, they have to be maintained. The drivers have to be paid, duty tour allowances and all other officials.
The governor has 20 vehicles?
Some governors have up to 20 vehicles in their convoys. This is not any, it's not news.
You've been asking about states all the while, so perhaps this will make him ask more in terms of what the state governors have got to do.
They have to adopt. It's all cost-saving measures, because at the end of the day, it adds up, some of these expenses. They are totally unnecessary, except for states where you have, challenges of insecurity. You cannot expect.
Mr. Saliu, just a quick one, if you can hear me. There's a question that, Chamberlain, that conversation about the convoy, that's another, kettle of fish altogether. The governors have to find a way to manage their own resources in a way that the people will not get angry with them at some point. But, Mr. Saliu, there's a question that Malkwe asked the other time that I would like you to expatiate a little further on. Perhaps it is the challenge of communication. What are we saying to our people? You've talked about the fact that the League of Northern Democrats need to be more proactive in the development of the North because of all of the peculiar challenges of the North. Data says security there is way off, poverty issues are ridiculous and all of those. And it's not like the potential for development and growth are not there. So what should we be saying to the people, particularly the northern elite, both in our words and in the things that we do? What should we be communicating to the people for them to be able to take ownership of their destinies and find a way to galvanize this development in the North?
First and foremost, we must put our best foot forward. We must, in political or leadership recruitment, we must get the best professionals on board, technocrats, and those that have not only proven integrity, but have excelled to be in position of leadership. When you have garbage in, you have garbage out. I've always maintained that when you go to Lagos and you come up north, you see Nigeria literally as one country with 2 systems. There you're talking about a state that is doing, light rail, has gone ahead to develop. Have you been to Banana Island of recent, or have you crossed, Osborne Road going to Oniru, the new bridge and what have you? Have you seen how Lagos has been transformed into literally a mega city? Can you say that of Kaduna? Can you say that of Kano or Jos or Maiduguri or Yola or Bauchi or Sokoto?
The issues you have just raised now, my apologies, Mr. Saliu, the issues you have just raised, that there are a lot more to do with the elite. The issues that the elite themselves should be addressing directly, and not the people. So what are we saying to the people via our actions and our daily living for them to know that, look, we're all one?
We have, first and foremost, we must be altruistic. We must be seen to interface with the general public in the North, to educate them on the imperatives of, patriotism, on the necessity to have quality leadership, on the need to have a political leadership that will deliver. But as elites, we also must lead by examples. We must ensure that we are not displaying obscene and provocative opulence in times of poverty and and deprivation. So the elites in the north must regroup, must do an analysis, as we have done in the League of Northern Democrats, of the critical impediments to growth in the society, out of school children in education, good governance, political recruitment, and ensure that quality, quantity, and variety obtains in leadership. By example, and ensure that, sorry, Kyle, let me land on this, and ensure that when you are electing officers, or when you are appointing officers, recruit the best from amongst us that can deliver.
Now, so how will this conversation, how will this conversation happen? There is it's a former governor of somewhere in the north, I'm not sure whether it was Kaduna, has said that at some point, the governors stopped collaborating. And we have talked countless times about collaboration here. The northern governors need to have conversations about collaboration. What do you make of that? Do you see that collaboration happening? What are the impediments to collaboration for the development of the North? Because I believe with all my heart that the North has everything it takes to develop itself. We've had it before.
That is why we said, Kayode, in the League of Northern Democrats, that we are out for a greater North and a better Nigeria, or a better North and a greater Nigeria. Maybe some of the northern governors are overwhelmed by the challenges before them, maybe. But my own take is that not all the governors, but some of the governors have literally disconnected from their people. They are operating almost like emperors and leading empires. I'm not necessarily saying this is the position of the League of Northern Democrats. This is Ladan Salihu as a political analyst, as a reporter talking as a commentator. But then, when you are disconnected from the people, when you don't have a conversation with them, when you don't inspire them, when you don't look at their own state of poverty and get fired on to address such poverty, then governance becomes, a mere, paperwork.
All right, we'll have to anchor at that point, and we do thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning. But yes, to let you know that Kano State is supposed to conduct the local government elections tomorrow, but we don't know what's going to happen because there are conflicting court orders. So we will talk about that when we return. But for now, it's time for Business Morning.
Yes, it is time for business. Hello and welcome to the TGIF trading on local bourses. It's been a bullish week with the banks leading the pack in the equities market. But let's get to the top stories that set your agenda. Starting with commodities now. See, oil prices nudge higher today and on track for a weekly gain of more than 1%. As tensions in the world's top oil producing region, as the Middle East, and a restart in Gaza ceasefire talks in coming days kept traders on edge. So that's supply constraints at this time. Brent $74.69 a barrel, up by 0.4%. Today, $70.48. That's for the U.S. grade. It's going to be a weekly gain of about 1%, but it does not offset the loss. Massive loss of 7%. That's for the week last week. So it's just recouping some, but who knows what's going to play out next week in the market. But both benchmarks settled down like 58 cents a barrel. That was in the previous session after prices, fluctuated against expectations of heightened or reduced tensions in the Middle East. All traders are waiting for Israel's response to a missile attack by Iran on October 1st that may involve hitting Tehran's oil infrastructure and disrupt supplies, although reports say Israel would strike Iranian military and not nuclear or oil targets. All right, let's get a check on the FX market. We see for the NAFEX window depreciated by about 6 naira, therefore 0.37%. But we saw some strength when it comes to the NFM. That's the NFM window there, 1,601 naira. So we're still seeing that range between 1,600, 1,650 at this point. But we had a gain yesterday, big jump, 3.20% to close. So, there was demand for dollar, but in relation to supply towards the end of the session. But we saw the CBN, they also intervened. In the market, we keep seeing the CBN intervene in the market every now and then, trying to bring that stability. But analysts are anticipating that today we might see the CBN again continue to remain active, and maybe we might get a weekly gain. That's for the week. That's for the official window for the Naira. So other stories now, the central bank has denied reports that it has issued a deadline on the circulation of old series of Naira banknotes in the country. In a statement, the financial market regulator explained that such claims are false and calculated to disrupt the country's payment system. At the same time, the CBN has directed all its branches to continue to issue and accept all denominations of Nigerian banknotes, both old and redesigned, to and from deposit money banks. It will be recalled that the Supreme Court ordered that the old series of 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira banknotes shall continue to be legal tender alongside the redesigned versions. And the International Monetary Fund has projected that Nigeria's current debt-to-GDP ratio will drop slightly from the current level of 50.7% to 49.6% next year. According to its fiscal monitor report, the IMF mentioned that the country's debt includes overdrafts from the Central Bank of Nigeria, liabilities of the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, that's AMCON. The International Financial Institution says the country's debt-to-GDP ratio was initially lower at 46.1% within the same period last year before climbing to the present level of 50.7%. Meanwhile, the most recent report released by the Debt Management Office on June the 20th shows that Nigeria's public debt increased to 121 trillion naira in the first quarter of this year, in contrast to 97 trillion recorded in December 2023. And I believe for Q2, we have updated about 130 trillion. Well, Nigeria and 12 other countries have joined the BRICS Intergovernmental Organization as partner nations as the bloc officially expands its alliance. The bloc made this announcement at its 16th annual summit held in Kazan, Russia, which began October 22nd to 24th. In January this year, the bloc admitted 4 countries, which include Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates as its members. BRICS is an acronym for a group of more than 10 leading emerging economies, which initially began with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with the aims of promoting trade, investment, peace, security, development, and cooperation among its members. All right, let's head out to the first conversation now. Nigeria's payment landscape has undergone significant transformations in recent years, driven by technological advancement, regulatory reforms, and shifting consumer behaviors. Despite progress, challenges persist, including fragmentation, inefficiencies, and limited access to financial services. Well, joining us to analyze the industry now, we have Dada Olusegun, who's the CEO Zojo Pay, joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. So, looking at the financial payment system in Nigeria, what would you say are the primary pain points, and how can they be addressed, at this point? We know most of the banks now are upgrading their banking, core banking system at this point, and we know customers are complaining of service disruptions. Even though some banks say, don't worry, our banking services will not be disrupted, even though we're doing the upgrade at this time. But talk to me about these pain points you see.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ladi. First of all, I would say that looking at where we are in Nigeria currently, we've come a long way. We've seen a lot of free progress happening in the past decade, whereby we see a lot of people making use of mobile payments, USSD, code, and also online wallets. And right now, you can see people transfer money to their phones, or even to buy things on the road, and also to do their side hustle without even going to the bank. And like you rightly said, there are still a lot of hurdles that we need to cross currently. And that is, some of them are due to the fact that we have a lot of unbanked and underbanked people, especially in the rural areas. And some of them probably don't trust the system currently or just don't have access. The other aspect also is around the network infrastructure, which is a vibe killer, if I should say. You are at the supermarket trying to scan your QR code and bam, there's a transaction failure. It's really frustrating. And the other aspect too, I would say, is the high transaction cost, which we've seen happening over the years, even with the recent security level that has also been put in place. And this really affects a lot of the people in the society, which sometimes allow everyone to stick to cash. And lastly, we can't also take away the fact that cash is still king currently in our economy, and we just need to continue improving on our digital infrastructure and our cashless policy to see how we can be able to take that to the next level.
Right, and talking about cashless policy, I remember recently I was trying to make a payment in Kenya with my Nigerian card, and that's my Naira card. At this point, and it didn't work. It couldn't work. I tried it, multiple times. I tried different cards, so it still stands that you can't make international payments with your Naira card. That's for traditional banks. And I'm wondering, at some point, do you think fintechs will be able to help out, when it comes to that? Because my Kenyan friend said, they could spend their own shilling card in Nigeria, without any issues. So, talk to me about this. Is it something the fintechs can actually help in bridging? That's this gap.
Yes, I believe the fintech can be able to help, but the truth is, it's not just the fintech that needs to be able to come in to achieve this. It's all around collaboration with the Nigerian government, collaboration with the banking system, collaboration even with the telcos also. Currently, I know we are making a lot of waves in the financial space, and there is still a lot of room for growth. And like you rightly said regarding your Kenya friends, with their M-Pesa, there's a whole lot happening there, and which you can also see happening in Nigeria with the USSD payment that has been a game changer for us in the past, I would say, decade or so, whereby it provides financial access to everyone, even without the internet. And like you already mentioned with that regarding making international payments, it goes beyond just maybe the infrastructure. Again, one of the major problems we've seen of recent time has been the high FX rates, which has really affected a lot of these international transactions, and that has limited the IMTOs, the bank, to be very cautious regarding making those services available. And apart from that also is the fact that there is a need for more interoperability that needs to really occur. And that's probably from the system, infrastructure, and policies, just like what we see happening with India, with their UPIS system, whereby it allows payments to be able to make easily across various platforms without any form of hitches. So I believe that with the right policy, with the right collaboration, and also with the FX issues being addressed, we can be able to see a lot of improvement happening in that sector, in that aspect as we move forward.
Yeah, because at this point, it seems this FX issue impacts everything. Because I remember in the past, you could use your Naira card to make international payments easily without any stress. But ever since the Naira lost all of that value and the unification, it's been a real hassle at this point. But talk to me about how regulatory frameworks can be optimized to support some innovative payment solutions.
Yeah. On that aspect, which we've seen a lot of happening in the past years from CBN, because CBN has been a guide and also a gatekeeper regarding this, and they've really been helping to shape the future of payments in Nigeria. I would say, looking at what the CBN has done over the years in terms of driving innovation, there is still a whole lot more that needs to be done. Earlier, I mentioned about collaboration. For example, there's a need for a lot of collaboration between even the CBN and the NCC, which is telco, because there's a lot that has to do with those form of synergy in being able to take the payment to the next level. Firstly, we can see the policy in which CBN has done regarding cashless, and we can see the improvement that has made over the years, and also with the provision of various forms of licenses such as the PSP, MMTO, IMTO. That's even opened doors for organizations like ours, SojaPay, and every other fintech in the industry to be able to come in and be able to make an impact in trying to drive digitalization and looking at how to be able to address some of these challenges. And the other aspect is with the policy we are also seeing happening within the blockchain industry, whereby CBN even going ahead with the in-era, you can see that there is a bold step for us to move into the future. And I want to believe that the key to all of this is to keep the policy being flexible. If we put too many rules in place, it might affect innovation. And at the end of the day, we might not be able to get where we need to be. I believe that the CBN needs to be more flexible, needs to put the right policies in place, and at the end of the day, we can see innovation happen.
Right, and we know the growth of mobile money services and digital wallets. Talk to me about the role that these two are playing. When it comes to expanding financial inclusion, we keep talking about getting the rural areas financially included. So talk to me about how far most of these mobile payments have gone so far.
So far, I would say currently right now, there's a lot happening in the rural area, but a lot can still happen. Some of them are probably due to lack of adequate infrastructure that we see happening within these various areas. Earlier, I mentioned about the network issues that we have that do give us a form of a vibe killer. So currently, we've seen a lot happening, especially leveraging on the agent network, which has been there for a while. And we've seen a lot of people within the rural area taking a whole lot in place. Today, we've also seen fintechs and organizations even going down to the extent of, coming up with new innovations such as solar power ATMs, whereby power should not be a concern in these various areas. And this can be able to help in achieving that inclusion we are trying to bring together. Another aspect is also the mobile POS devices that are being used in place of the ATMs. And with this, transactions can be able to happen easily at any point in time. And lastly, I will still also mention about the partnership, which is very key. There is a need for a lot of partnership, a lot of collaboration between the fintechs, the telcos, the bank, because the fintech has the infrastructure, the fintech has the idea and innovation, the telco has the infrastructure, and the bank has stability. I believe that when this partnership comes together, we can be able to do a whole lot more and be able to drive inclusion within the economy.
And talking about this partnership with the telcos, recently one of the major telcos in Nigeria says that if they do not get a tariff increase soon, that they're gonna go out of business, technically. So are you guys in the fintech space, getting nervous when you hear such statements?
Yes, actually, we have, because at the end of the day, when those tariff increments comes in, our customers are the ones that will really also sometimes bear the burden, or sometimes it might increase our cost of operation. And as a fintech, one of our major aim and goal, especially for us in SojaTech, is to see how we can provide SojaPay, is to see how we can provide our customers with amazing services, amazing solutions that comes with a lot of more benefits. For example, carrying out transaction without transaction fee, being able to have access to various forms of personalized services. And when these various costs comes in, it affects the various services we can be able to provide to our customers. So yes, it's a lot of concerns, and that's why I would also believe that with effective collaboration between the various regulatory bodies such as the NCC and CBN, it can be able to help us to achieve, a balanced approach to all of this.
Right, and just yesterday, one of the WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of, one of the members got hacked, and the person, the hacker, started asking us for funds, pretending to be, our friend, and he put up an account number in there, and it was one of the fintech, accounts. And I'm wondering, is it easy, for the fintechs to be able to flag such accounts and maybe, apprehend some of these hackers? Is it possible? Is it easier with fintechs?
Okay. The truth is, security is a major concern, and it's everything in payments. And again, without trust, nothing would work. And this issue you just mentioned right now is a major concern. But however, with the emerging technologies we have happening, such as the AI, we can be able to use this currently to be able to detect frauds, whereby we are able to keep eyes on various forms of every transactions and even patterns that occurs. So with such that you mentioned right now, it can, with AI-powered fraud detection system, you can be able to detect any form of anomalies and can be able to even stop such account or transactions from being happening. So that is currently in place. And another aspect is also the aspect of collaboration. For example, within the bank, among the banks, fintech, and also the telcos, whereby when data are being shared around fraud trends, I believe everyone wins. I don't think it's all a matter of, something is happening, people keep it to themselves. We need to share data, we need to share information, and be able to ensure that we're able to achieve that synergy, that environment whereby security is everyone's concern. And lastly, too, is about education to our users. I believe that an informed customer is a secure customer. And with that, we can be able to eliminate such issues you raised.
All right, definitely. We hope, these hackers don't get more WhatsApp accounts, going forward. Thank you so much. That was Dada Olusegun, CEO of Zoja Pay. It was great having you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ladi.
And remember to stay safe out there with your WhatsApp accounts and all of it, because they keep trying every day. They've tried me so many times. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we're going to head straight to the markets, find out what's happening with the fixed income market, get a review for the week. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. All right, let's review the fixed income market right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Joining us is Chuka Nwachukwu, who's head balance sheet management at UBA. Great to have you. Good morning.
Morning, Ladi.
Yeah, so it's been quite a week in the fixed income market. How would you describe, liquidity, this week? Was it encouraging?
Thank you, Ladi. Liquidity has been a major source of concern as regards trading, especially on the fixed income market. For example, between last week and this week, FAC came in. About 1.2 trillion came in a way of FAC. And then coupon payments, about over 400 billion, also came into the system. But remarkably, the system is still in repo of well over 500 billion as of today. And so that will tell you how tight the system liquidity is, and obviously affecting trading, especially on the fixed income market, especially where you see, bonds and bills being traded, the trading on especially on the bonds and bills is greatly being affected by the liquidity. Yesterday, there was an NTB settlement from Wednesday, and then of course another 300 billion left the system. So with this liquidity, we expect that system there will be bullish sentiment. Of course, those who lost at the two auctions this week would have been, would have gone to the secondary markets to fill in the orders. But unfortunately, the tightness in the system is really affecting a lot of things, especially on the fixed income market.
Right, I can imagine. And I know the government initially offered 180 billion naira in the October auction, with 90 billion allocated to each bond. But, despite the offering of a lower amount, we saw the total allotment that surged to about 289 billion naira. What does this tell us?
So it shows that in that auction, there were two maturities on offer, 2029 and then 2031. So the 2031 is where you have the major bid from, and that shows that the 2031 is more lucrative. Investors look for that bill, for that bond, in order for for investment purpose. So if you drill down to last month auction, which is on September, you will notice that there were three on offer, but the 2033 was also on offer, but it wasn't on offer this time around. So majority of investors, especially the PFAs, prefer the long end bonds, and that's why you saw a lot of bullish sentiment on the 2031.
And we see Nigeria's public debt hit about 134 trillion. That's in the second quarter of 2024, according to DMO. But domestic debt accounts for about 53% of that total debt. FGN bonds, dominate about 78%, of that debt. So what is the implication of this? And is it something we should be happy about, at this point, seeing that it's more domestic?
Well, debt is debt, whether it's domestic or foreign. So nobody wants to be in debt, But what it means is that the DMO, strategically, is trying to reduce our foreign portfolio, foreign debt, especially as regard to FX, because of the exchange rate and all that. So a lot of attention is on the local debt, especially on the fixed income market, treasury bills and bonds, and that is why you see that. Many a times when, for example, last auction on the bond side, about 180 was offered and well over 286 billion was sold. So it's easier for the government to service local debt than looking at international or foreign debt. So it's not something we'll be excited about, but I think if you weigh the two options, it's better to be in the local debt than the foreign debt, where you don't have control over the FX exchange rate fluctuation, for example.
All right, so we're seeing the government more reliant on local debt at this point. I guess, some have clamored for that, in the past, seeing how the valuation, racks up your debt payment and servicing. But, talk to me about general activity, the fixed income market this week.
So this week started on an auction. The bond auction was on Monday. Like we mentioned earlier, about two maturities were on offer, 2029 and 2033. And so that auction took us into the NTB auction, where well over 350 billion was also offered. Settlement was yesterday, and so that, of course, took out a lot of cash in the system. So if you look at the auction, especially the longer end of the curve, that's the 1 year view, for example, which came out at 20.65, is currently trading above that level, which indicate that appetite isn't there, and that obviously is also indicate that market is still expecting a higher yield due to the fact that it will be more lucrative for them. And then, of course, looking at what the government is also doing in terms of borrowing, we just talked shortly before now, we talked about local borrowing. It's seen that government will continue to rely on local borrowing. And if that happens, it means that the yield will continue to be attractive. And then, of course, it will continue to go up. But then, like I said yesterday, we do not see, higher yield, especially NTB above 21%. So within 19 to 20%, 21%, we see the 1 year on the bill side. Today is the last day of trading. We expect market to be quiet. Of course, also we expect that there will be cherry picking, especially those who lost at the two auctions, the bond auction and the T-bills auction. So we expect moderate trading, but slight bullish sentiment, going into today's market.
We'll be definitely watching out for that. Thank you so much, Chuka Nwachukwu, Head Balance Sheet Management, UBA. Thank you.
Thank you, Ladi. Thank you very much.
And it's still earning season right here, and Nigerian Breweries PLC posted its financial statement for the first 9 months of the year, recording 159.7% increase in its pre-tax losses compared to the same period last year. So we see Nigerian Breweries, the key highlights there. Revenue was up about 74.66% at 710 billion. Gross profit, 209 billion, up 37.59%. Then the big one, that's you can call it the elephant in the room. Forex transaction losses, 160 billion naira, that's up 84.4%. We see that trend with most of the consumer goods stocks this time. But when the banks are declaring their bumper profits at this point. But when we look at most of these consumer goods and the industrials, we see this trend going through most of their financial results. So the trading is on right now. We'll give you a summary of how it closed. That's for News at 10. But you also get intraday analysis on what's playing out in the local bonds and most of the global markets that we track. That's it from me on Business Morning. I'll hand things over to the Sunrise Daily team.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. We're talking Kano politics. And as you've seen there, Mr. Abdulkadir Sani joins us now. He is the National Vice President North for Nigerian Law Society. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning.
Okay, so let you listen to this. This is coming from the Public Relations Officer of the of the Kano State Police Command. So listen to this.
The position of the law is very clear. Section 4 of the Police Act 2020 as amended provides the responsibility of the Nigeria Police Force, which is protection of life and property. And of course, you are very much aware of the court order received by the police command here in Kano. Item 9 of the order provided that the police should not participate in the coming local government election in the state. The police in Kano are not participating in the election. But however, it is our responsibility to ensure no breakdown of law and order in the state, and we are always alive to our responsibilities. The State Commissioner of Police, CP Salman Dogo Garba, has already directed all the command's operational commanders to ensure protection of life and property in Kano State. And he directed for continuous round-the-clock visibility patrols to ensure that the inhabitants of the state are safe. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Sani, some interesting scenario there. Now, the background to this is that, there had been a court judgment, they say in the first instance, from the Kano High Court that no one should stop the election from going on. And then another group said they went to court and equally got a judgment which says you cannot proceed with the election. They dissolved KANSEC and suspended the chairman of that commission, saying he was a card-carrying member of NNPP. And now they say there's going to be another judgment delivered today, this morning, and such, they are waiting to see what will happen. But in the meantime, preparations are in top gear for the forthcoming local government elections. So with the police saying they will not participate, give us your perspective. What is the position of the law on this matter?
Well, you said we have judgment of two courts. One supporting that no one should stop the election. And the second one is saying that the KANSEC is disbanded not to participate in the election. Not to even conduct. Not only that, it nullifies every step that has been taken so far. Now, the position of the law is clear. If you look at the first judgment, the first order which was given by the Kano State High Court, you realize that the parties are not entirely the same with those that of the judgment given by the Federal High Court. KANSEC went against political parties, requesting the court to stop anyone who intends to conduct himself in a manner that will prevent conduct of the elections. If you ask me personally, I will tell you that is preemptive. Now, for the matter which was before the Federal High Court, the matter was litigated fully and judgment was entered. One of the grounds of the judgment is that, like you rightly said, people who constitute the KANSEC are card-carrying members of the NNPP. You see, when you have a judgment, the position of the law is this. An order made by a court of law, no matter how bad, subsists until it is set aside on appeal. And then I do not understand if at all there is any order by the first court why the political party did not go against that particular order, either by asking the court to vacate the order or set it aside. That being what that is, that the one before the Federal High Court was very explicit. Court gave judgment. Even if you have reservation for that judgment, we live in a system that is guided by, rules and regulations, and in fact, of the Constitution. If the Federal High Court has pronounced on that, I believe that the right thing to be done is for you to contest this on appeal. Because by the time you begin to have conflicting orders, if at all the two amounts of conflicting orders, we are inviting anarchy. You have just heard the spokesperson of the police saying they are not participating. Kano, by its nature, is one that we must be careful when we have situations like this. You do not have election, you have serious crisis that led to burning down the High Court, the main complex of the Kano State High Court. Now, you're having an election and you are saying that you are not the police are not participating. Of course, by order, of course, they must obey the order of court. So if they are not participating, you can just imagine the scenario that you're going to have.
So a number of things pop up there. Pardon me to jump in.
Very strong
now,
contenders, political party. I don't know. I don't want to imagine that the crisis will, that will be emerging from that scenario.
So a couple of things come up here. I hope you can hear me though. Now today, there was supposed to be that judgment delivered yesterday, but the judge was not available, and so they moved it to today. So I think they seem to be optimistic that the judgment will favor the conduct of the elections. Now, if and when that judgment comes in today, assuming that it does say go ahead and conduct elections, it means that, that will be the subsisting judgment that they'll have to adhere to, isn't it?
That's correct. But you see, if you look at it, there is a judgment subsisting already. Are you telling me that the same court will set aside the judgment of a coordinate court? It is not done. That's not the procedure. So no court of coordinate jurisdiction has the power to set aside the judgment of his learned brother.
That's the interesting thing about this.
The only court that can do that with jurisdiction is the Court of Appeal.
Some of those who argue about this, they say that now, when this second judgment came, they are arguing that this court had no jurisdiction, and so they don't think that this is a valid judgment, and so it's faulty by itself. And now, if this one comes through, another group will have a problem with this one.
Okay, you see, it does not lie in the mouth of any contender or any participant to say that judgment is not valid. The exclusive power to say the judgment is not valid is in Court of Appeal. So you cannot determine what judgment is valid, which is not valid. That is why I said there is presumption of regularity, presumption of correctness in any judgment delivered. This is why, you see, at this point, I think the judiciary must step up. It is high time we start having conflicting judgments. The law defines the jurisdiction of each of the courts. So if anyone overlaps in his jurisdiction, it is either there is no clear understanding of the law or it is done with malice, with all due respect. So the disciplinary mechanism must be put in place to stop this. We can't push ourselves into anarchy, for God's sake.
So there's a role for NJC here.
Yes. There is the role of NJC, of course. You see, you do not have a court pronouncing wrongly without also having lawyers who put in the terrain for the court to pronounce wrongly. The law is clear. Even though it is brought to you, you can look at it and say, look, I lack jurisdiction on this matter. Or you even invite him, address me on whether I have jurisdiction or not. You can't just go slavishly and begin to pronounce on what is outside your jurisdiction. Judges do this as a matter of, guiding themselves, guide them with the law why they have jurisdiction. But to say two courts, one for state high court, one federal high court, pronouncing on almost the same subject matter differently, I'm sorry to say we are heading to an unpalatable destination because society is watching everything. The more you begin to disobey one order and choose which one to believe, you are also telling Nigerians or the populace to choose what order to believe and which not to believe. We must live in a coordinated society guided by rules of law. That's my point.
Do you think that that's what the police have done by saying they're staying away? Or do you think that they're saying we recognize one judgment over the other?
Certainly not. The police, being an agency of the federal government, has obligation to obey court judgment. They have obligation to obey laws and order. The court made it clearly for them to stay away. And they said they are not participating. They are simply obeying the rules made by the court. So they are not, you can't fault the police. They have done the right thing. Because if, for instance, they decide to participate after expressly the court has voided every procedure, they are simply saying that they are also in contempt of court, disobeying the judgment of the Federal High Court. With all due respect, this is my position.
While all of this battle, because this we've seen in the wake of local government elections that have now been conducted in different parts of the country following the Supreme Court judgment, what we have seen have been that, a lot of them, the conduct has left a lot to be desired. And as usual, we have seen that, the results always reflect the governor's party. The party of the governor in power in the state. Usually you see one uniform result. And sometimes you do see spirited efforts by members of the opposition to resist what is happening there. Do you think that the outcome of the polls, should they go ahead, do you think that in spite of all of these efforts we're seeing, the outcomes might be different?
Well, let me start with the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. The pronouncement of the Supreme Court is distinguishable from what is at hand. The Supreme Court pronounced that all local government elections must be held, and then there should not be, what is known as usual as caretaker, whatever, which is saying that it illegalize the caretaker and then have the elected officers to come into local government. That is understandable. But it's not to the effect that when there are no compliance with the laid down laws, that the court should not void it. And that's what the Federal High Court has done. It has voided, if, for instance, you have a card-carrying member and other people who are constituent of the council being part of NNPP as alleged, how do you believe in the transparency of the election? So I think from what is going on, the result may not be different. It will not, because if the court has voided, including nomination, issuance of form and everything from the beginning, void everything and even sack key officers of the council, and now you are still proceeding, I think this is illegality upon illegality. I've said it earlier, you cannot challenge a court pronouncement unless, of course, you proceed before the Court of Appeal to set that particular judgment aside. So when it is set aside, now you have a clean slate. But whatever they will do now, I am telling you, it is like trending on illegality because the pronouncement is clear. And like I said, this thing still falls back to NJC. This thing must be reviewed. We must have a clear angle where we can say that judgment of the court are no longer conflicting. Jurisdiction are parallel. It shouldn't be.
Ayo.
Well, one of the issue that you have raised now, sir, is one of those that over and over again we've heard this, we've seen this, particularly when it comes to politics. Conflicting judgments, one person saying something, another person, one court saying something about the case, and another one saying something totally different. In fact, there was a case that we heard that somebody in analyzing, just as you're doing right now, was saying that there is no way a court would know what another court have decided on the same issue. And the argument that I put forward to the man was, look, how is that possible when there are lawyers on both sides of the same case who would approach one court and approach another court, and both of them know exactly what the issues are, but the judge may not know? How do you see that really happening? Do you think it is something valid, or is something that legal practitioners just do among themselves? Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. I can hear you.
I can hear you, but can you hear me now? Okay, well, if you can hear me, let me repeat that question. It's that concern that you raised earlier, the other time when you were talking about the fact that we can't be having conflicting cases of two decisions or two rulings of a court, of two different courts about one particular issue and both of them conflicting. It's a matter that's been on for a while. Where do you think the root is? Why does it happen? Why does it seem to happen mostly when it comes to political cases?
Okay, what I think is happening is there appears to be infiltration of politicians into judicial activities, and then it's a very dangerous development. That's why I spoke about jurisdiction of all the courts. If the courts are properly guided by what is laid down for them in terms of jurisdiction, it is clear in the Constitution. I think no matter by what means the politicians are approaching the bench should refrain from attending to their requests.
It's interesting that you
there's no
lay it on the
reason why
bench.
you will have,
if you can hear me, Mr. Sonny,
a clear definition of the law.
Just a second, if you can hear me, because there are legal practitioners who are also politicians. If you can hear me, Mr. Sonny. There are legal practitioners who are also politicians. The same way we have medical doctors in politics, we have lawyers in politics, we have engineers in politics. There are legal practitioners such as yourself who are also in politics. So where does the infiltration come? Is it that the profession, the practice, is unable to monitor or control itself? Okay. Well, I guess we'll have to come to this again, well, Mr. Sonny, because the issue that is on the burner right now, when you say that the politicians, there's been an infiltration of politicians in politics, of lawyers, of legal practitioners in politics. There are legal practitioners in politics. There are lawyers in politics. There are aviators in politics. There are accountants in politics. So is it that the profession cannot insulate itself? Because it's the same lawyers that go to this court, that go to another court, and both of them argue maybe the same case. So what exactly do you think is the problem? Are there corruption tendencies, or is it that the judiciary is so porous that it cannot defend itself or protect itself from all of these disturbances?
Okay, you see, my take on this is, first of all, there are factors involved. One of them is we must be mindful of the kind of people we elevate to the bench. I read an article sometimes which says the bench is not for failed practitioners. We must appoint people who have clear understanding of the provisions of the law, and the people with vast experience, people who are in practice, who have seen both sides of everything. And then the second one is that there are also interests involved. Of course, like you said, in politics, there are lawyers, there are accountants, there are all manners of professions, who are also involved in politics. But the fact that the interest involved, they are affiliated to a particular political party, what they advocate simply is the interest of that political party. And most often than not, they will be searching for a soft angle where they can approach a judge that will give an order in their favor. And I think this is what is affecting the society. It's not about whether because a lawyer, no, lawyers argue some of this application. But you see, when you bring an application expert before a court, it's an application that will be heard without listening to the other side. But it is not out of place for the judge to tell them, put the other side on notice and address me on jurisdiction. So if they come up with the laws, what we call judicial precedent, a judge will safely follow a judicial precedent without liability. Because even if you petition against that judge, the court will still, the NJC will look at the record, look at the argument that we're taking, and see if there are supporting evidence for that judge to act in that manner. So these are the issues. It's mainly interest that each of the professionals advocate at that time. If, for instance, a political party briefs a lawyer and he goes before another court, he is going to argue in favor of that particular judge, a particular party. So that is exactly what is taking us to this destination, which is not palatable.
So, and I'm glad that you mentioned, I'm glad that you mentioned NJC. Just a second, Mr.
Section
Sonny.
1, subsection 3.
Yes,
Even if by
I hear
commission
you.
or commission,
Yeah, Mr. Sonny, just 1 second, I hear you. But I'm glad that you mentioned NJC. Just 1 second, Mr. Sonny, if you can hear me. I'm glad that you mentioned NJC. And one of the questions that comes to anyone naturally would be, what exactly is it that the NJC or other pillars in the profession what can they do? Shouldn't they also be able to do something? Because you are a legal practitioner. I'm sure several other legal practitioners such as yourself are complaining. There is the body of benches, the SANs, I believe they also have their own body. There is the NJC, there is the Supreme Court, there is the NBA, and it's all of its instruments and infrastructure. Is it that they are powerless? Our judiciary is 25 years old, and this issue that you have talked about is almost, if not even older, and our democracy?
Well, they are not powerless. They are not powerless. I think what is missing from there is that the fact that some of the hearing judges are not sanctioned. But the power is defined, they have the power, but if they don't get sanctioned, that is why you see we keep having this repeat episode of what is happening. But I can tell you the rules that guides the NJC on any hearing judge is still subsisting where you are found wanting. Once you are sanctioned, a lot of people would, a lot of other judges or other lawyers who are involved will get deterred and they won't go into that. Like I told you earlier, if anyone brings application before you and you have mixed feeling about whether I tell him to address you on jurisdiction. Once he addresses you and he cannot show that you have jurisdiction, you decline. You recuse yourself and tell him, I do not have jurisdiction, go to the court that has jurisdiction. But you see, once they come, and then if laden with interest, people just proceed slavishly, and we continue to have two coordinate courts, litigating over the same matter and coming up to a different ending, favoring whichever side that comes before it. The NJC must step up to do the right thing. We cannot continue to have the society in this manner. In Kano, we are particularly afraid of this because the flashpoint is now when there is a crisis about to happen in polling unit, there are no police. There are no law enforcement agents to intervene on this issue. We don't pray it escalate into something else. That's why I said technically we are inviting anarchy. Law and order must be seen to prevail. We must obey court orders at all costs, no matter what. Go to Court of Appeal, challenge it, and then put things right.
Yes, I know you said they should go to Court of Appeal, but does the Federal High Court have jurisdiction over Kano State or over local government matters?
Well, if you ask, because I don't know what argument. You see, there is a subsisting judgment now.
Here.
My perception personally, being a local government election, I think the jurisdiction does not lie with Federal High Court. This is my humble, understanding of the law. I think it does not lie, but I don't know what argument was canvassed. I've not seen the record of proceedings, and I have not gone through, I've seen the order, but I've not gone through the proceedings. But the bottom line is, I do not think the Federal High Court has that jurisdiction. A pre-election matter that involves, national election, yes, the Federal High Court has exclusive jurisdiction over that. But I don't think, subject to whatever that may come up, to correct me on that notion, because it's an ocean of learning. But I personally don't think Federal High Court does. Thank you.
Okay, so one more thing. Now, preparations are in place for the election, despite that decision by the courts. Yes, you said the right thing is to challenge it, but at the moment, the elections have not been conducted. Can they be said to have disobeyed the court order?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whoever is advising the government to proceed in spite of the judgment, whoever is giving whatever courage to the government or to whoever that is involved, including the Kansiek, I can tell you they are in contempt and they are proceeding illegally. So whatever they have done, because if you look at the finding of the court, it has nullified everything from the beginning to the end. So whatever you are doing, you are just going on voyage of discovery, which will end up in, absolutely, illegality. So this is my take. As far as the judgment still stands, it's an illegality.
Okay. So until much later this morning, I think they should be sitting by now. So we'll wait and see what happens. Will it hold or not? Time will tell.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank you for your time this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, there you go. That is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next time. I'm Chamberlain, so have yourselves a very lovely day and weekend.
Indeed, looking forward to seeing you again in the evening. Don't forget to tune in for Hard Copy at 8:30 p.m. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makide. Have a beautiful day.